Hello. Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain, written around 1136, is arguably responsible more than any other work for establishing the popular image of King Arthur, developing the character from the shadowy, elusive figure of earlier sources and bringing him vividly to life. This wooden sculpture of Geoffrey stands among a circle of 6 legends of Monmouthshire at the old railway station in Tintagel. Much of the detail familiar from later romantic retelling of the legendary stories make an appearance in Geoffrey's work, beginning with Arthur's conception at Tintagel Castle after Uther Pendragon makes love to Igraine with the help of Merlin's magic. Geoffrey had earlier written the prophecies of Merlin, which he included in his history, and later wrote a life of Merlin. He tells how Arthur became king at 15, successfully fought against Saxons, Scots and Picts to establish peace in Britain, spent 9 years campaigning in Gaul, and ends with Mordred's treachery and the final battle in 542, in which Arthur, at the head of 6,666 men, defeated his nephew. After the battle, a wounded Arthur is taken to Avalon to be treated for his wounds. The question of whether Arthur recovers or dies is left unanswered. In emphasising Arthur's chivalric values of honour, justice, nobility and courtesy, Geoffrey established an influential character template that later writers developed and expanded to create the idealised Arthur of popular imagination. Some key elements that later became embedded in Arthurian legend do not appear in Geoffrey's work. There is no Lady of the Lake and no Excalibur. Arthur's sword is called Caliburnus by Geoffrey. In translating the history of the kings of Britain into French around 1155, it was the Jersey-born cleric and poet Wace, sometimes called Robert Wace, who changed the name of the sword to Excalibur and introduced other elements including the round table in his Gestes de Breton or Deeds of the Britons, renamed by later copiers the Roman de Brut. Examination of the 18 feet diameter round table that hangs in the Great Hall at Winchester in the mid-1970s produced a dendrochronology date for the felling of the timbers of between 1250 and 1280. Its construction has been attributed to Edward I in readiness for a major tournament at Winchester held in 1290. His grandson, Edward III, had the legs removed and the table mounted on the wall in the mid-14th century. Henry VIII later had his portrait painted on the table as King Arthur. 3 monarchs associating themselves with Arthurian values. Despite some contemporary criticism, Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain was widely popular and translated from the original Latin into several languages. We know little about Geoffrey himself, based principally in Oxford, but presumably from Monmouth, since he adds that epithet himself, and so we assume Welsh. Late in life he was ordained as Bishop of St Asaph, but there's no evidence he ever visited the Welsh diocese. His history is dedicated to Robert, Earl of Gloucester, illegitimate son of Henry I and probably Henry's eldest child. Robert, at the time reluctantly loyal to King Stephen, would soon become the main supporter of his half-sister the Empress Matilda and her claim to the throne of England, leading the military struggle against King Stephen in the civil war now commonly referred to as the Anarchy. The history of the kings of Britain opens with a mythical backstory, the arrival in Britain of Brutus of Troy. Invention is mixed with historical events such as the Roman conquest of most of Britain, and concludes with the death of Cadwallader, king of Gwynedd in 682. But from where did Geoffrey draw his information? He claimed his chief source was a certain very ancient book, written in Brittonic or Old Welsh, given to him by his friend and fellow writer Walter, Archdeacon of Oxford. I'm confident there was a book, Walter of Oxford was a significant contemporary figure, and Geoffrey would hardly make the claim if it wasn't true. But the book hasn't survived, and there's no way of knowing its provenance. It's clear from his references Geoffrey also drew on Bede's ecclesiastical history, written in the years leading up to 731, and the 9th century history of the Britons attributed to Nennius, as well as the writings of Gildas, both sources covered earlier in this series. And it's likely his research was widened to include oral tradition as well as other documentary sources. Geoffrey's work is regarded today as pseudo-history. While that doesn't mean everything he wrote should be dismissed, we do need to look for corroboration. Aurelius Ambrosius, named as an uncle of Arthur, might be the same man as Ambrosius Aurelianus, recorded by Gildas as the victor at the Battle of Mount Badon, which we covered in part 5. A battle fought by Arthur against a combined army of Saxons, Scots and Picts is described as taking place near the river Douglas, as it is in the work attributed to Nennius. In Geoffrey's account, after suffering defeat, the Scots and Picts take refuge on the islands of Lake Lumond, where Arthur mounts a successful siege, clearly identifiable by both name and description as Loch Lomond. St David and St Dubricius are among other attested historical characters from late 5th and 6th century Britain that appear. Is there anything else in Geoffrey's work that offers a glimpse into Arthurian Britain? Geoffrey locates Arthur's headquarters at the City of the Legions beside the River Usk near Newport in South Wales, identifiable as Caerleon, site of a Roman fort once home to 5,500 men of the 2nd Augustan Legion. These earthworks remain of the Roman amphitheatre. Gerald of Wales, a well-educated cleric and historian who travelled widely throughout Wales, writing some 50 years later, and importantly a critic of Geoffrey's history, agreed. It was certainly a key administrative centre, where St David presided over the Synod of Caerleon, a church council held in 569. Caerleon is a significant site in post-Roman Britain with impressive remains, but not the only candidate for the headquarters of resistance to Saxon invaders. I shall consider another, Tintagel Castle, next time. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons and click on the notification bell to be informed when the next video is available, or you can subscribe by clicking on the rose window over my shoulder.